Of course, go back to 25 years ago and the launch of OpenJaw and what was happening at that time in the industry and our focus and our purpose. And everything was focused on women. It's part of our business plan. It was part of our outlook. It was part of everything, every touch point.
Hi, everybody. As you know, Nina's been talking to some of the leading lights, female lights in our industry over the past little while. And when we're celebrating women in travel, we had this idea, well, what about Nina herself? I think Nina is really regarded so well in the business. She's been around a while like me, and what she's done to create and make OpenJaw thrive and become such a stellar part of the Canadian media landscape is, I think, pretty admirable. So, who better to be interviewed for this segment on OpenJaw than the founder of OpenJaw herself, Nina Slawek?
Thanks, Martha. Yeah, certainly interesting to be on this side of the Zoom screen. Thank you for that. When we talked about doing this, of course, go back to 25 years ago and the launch of OpenJaw and what was happening at that time in the industry and our focus and our purpose. And everything was focused on women. It's part of our business plan. It was part of our outlook. It was part of everything, every touch point. And if I may sort of step back even further, I remember standing on a fax machine that was high tech back then. It's probably about 27 years ago at KLM, and a hot piece of paper because those faxes were warm, as you recall. And it said that commissions had been dropped across the board in the US. And that was such a turning point in the industry. And it was like we all sort of stood still and thought, oh my God. And then right after that, the internet was born. So when we were kicked out of KLM, my business partner at the time, Suzanne Christie, and myself, we were like, what should we do? How can we support the industry? What how can we have an impact on all of these advisors who are out there, navigating enormous change and their whole business model overnight shifting? And so we thought, well, why don't we use that internet thing? Why don't we take advantage of what it has to offer, especially the video capabilities, which I had just heard about. And I thought, yeah, we're gonna do TV. Yeah, we're gonna do that. And then how we designed it was again focusing on the women, because at that time, it was 85% of the advisors were female, less now, but certainly still a huge portion. So we thought of that vintage pink color. Pink wasn't in fashion back then, but we kind of liked it because we thought it looked sort of 50s and we had that 50s TV. And we thought it's female friendly. And everything we did, how we spoke to advisors, the approach that we took, launching a charity initiative, we spent quite some time thinking, what can we do to support women? And we thought of breast cancer. And at that time as well, it's funny, breast cancer was not the big party that it became, but we launched the winter campaign, Winter Boob, which again, women. And then we balanced out the sort of soft side of what we were doing with a ballsy, no holds barred sex addict commentator called Ivana Gavilot, which shook up the industry again. But again, very much supporting women. I mean, that was her goal, right? She was extremely focused on battling and being the bad guy because we women don't always want to be the bad guy. And so we had this persona who took that on and took on the battle for us and could say bad words. And somehow was accepted because she was not a real person. So we sort of hid behind that.
I think when it comes to OpenJaw, you're the guys with personality. You're cheeky. You have, well, you say ballsy, which is ironic when we're talking about women here, but know what I mean. It's like what personality the publication has. I know when I attend trade events or go on press trips on behalf of OpenJaw, and I say I work for OpenJaw, those who are outside the industry think I'm writing for a dental publication, so I sort of have to explain all of that. I'm sure you've gotten that over the years as well. But people in the industry instantly respond very warmly, saying, "Oh, open jaw! I love open jaw." Which brings me to the other part of, I think, what you've done so successfully, which is your branding. You've really set Open Jaw aside as a brand and a big part of that brand. And this is what people also say when I tell them where I am and where who I'm writing for is the pink couch. Maybe you could
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about the pink couch.
It's funny, the pink couch. Yeah, it was sort of an accident.
Where did it
Um,
come from?
yeah, well, walking along Bayview, there was a secondhand furniture store back then called the Elegant Garage Sale, is in Toronto, and we saw this wacky back seat of a Cadillac, and we thought, well, that'd be cool decor, right? So we bought it and it didn't fit. Couldn't get down the stairs, couldn't get in the door, sat in the hallway outside our office in the basement on Laird for 2 months, and we kept begging them to take it back. But they said, you bought it, it's yours. So anyway, it dawned on us that we could maybe take the frame off the door and do all this MacGyvering. We got it in the office, and it was just a core. And one day I was interviewing someone on camera and they said, why don't you sit on that thing? I thought, really? They said, yeah, that's a cool thing. I thought, oh, okay. Funny, right? Accidents happen. But yes, I suppose you're right. There probably was more foresight in the branding than I'm giving myself credit for. And the cheekiness that you refer to is because it was a different era. And of course, I was much younger. And when you're younger, you don't have fear, right? We the idea was that we can shake up the industry. We can say things that nobody else is willing to say. And then you grow and the industry becomes much more corporate and you have advertisers. And so that edginess, probably got a bit worn down over the years, although we try to still have a bit of a smile in what we do. But all of that, again, Martha, relates to wanting to be relatable to the work that the advisor is doing. And particularly, of course, right now, very, very difficult time. Um, I can't even imagine the stress that people are under. What do I do? Every morning I ask myself, what do I do? How can I support that stress, anxiety that people are experiencing in the marketplace? Because it's challenging every day. What advisors do is unbelievably challenging, and I my heart goes out to them. And you know what's funny? When I did do the marketing back in the other world that I was in at an airline, I was so focused on consumers that travel advisors didn't really enter my frame. I didn't go to events, I didn't go meet them, and I'm thinking, what a missed opportunity I had even back then to get to know such smart business people who reinvent themselves every single day. And I have a lot of respect for our viewers. I'm babbling. I don't know. What was the
Oh, I mean,
question?
absolutely. What is your name? Uh, no, I mean, but going back to the start of it all, I think what sets the Open Job brand apart is that you inform, you educate, and you entertain, which I think not everybody does. And I know that some of the lighter moments on the site, like the cartoon, for example, I'm sure in a tough day, I'm sure there are advisors out there who look at that cartoon and go, "Oh, that's funny," like a 15-minute break from all of the pressure that they're on, which leads me to ask you, how has the industry changed? I mean, how many years are we talking now? 25?
25, yeah. 25 years.
25. So I mean,
Yeah.
just kind of in a nutshell, how does your perception of the industry, how's that changed?
Interesting. When we started out, it was all about how advisors are going extinct, right? I mean, that was the
Yes.
narrative. Banks wouldn't give us a loan, like, go get a haircut, get a job, forget about it. We were surviving on going to the drugstore, 99-cent bin for face cream. I kid you not, like we had no money. We were working out of my basement, but we were very focused on a dream. And so even though people were telling us and the research was telling us that advisors are going extinct. We didn't believe that. So we soldiered on. And I feel like we've gone through peaks and valleys over the years with the role that an advisor plays. But through all the difficulties, they are now stronger than ever. And I see it in the numbers of viewers. I see it in interviewing people, certainly the heads of all of the consortia, the numbers that they are bringing forward. The advisors, some of them that I'm interviewing now, who had a little agency or were themselves part of a host agency, are now becoming hosts themselves, individuals, entrepreneurs. I mean, it's unbelievable the business approach that I see advisors taking. 25 years ago, you still had a lot of order takers. Now you have people who are creating their own platforms, for driving their business, bringing in other advisors, training people. It's such a robust um, marketplace now compared to what it was. You'd go to events because there were so many trade shows back then, right? And you'd see, oh, the internet, and it was all this sort of whining, oh, the internet, and that was sort of the refrain, the constant refrain. And now it's, wow, I just did a group of 300 people to South Africa. My business is growing here, there. It's a very different confidence that is being relayed, and I find that that is so uplifting, and it's nice to see because now it's becoming a real business. It's not someone just taking bookings for air tickets, even though that's
What we used to,
too.
and I think, and this is a post-COVID thing, is the evolution and revolution of the ICs, the independent consultants that we're seeing
Yeah,
coming into our industry with absolutely no travel background, apart from their love of personal travel, and they're bringing such a fresh approach. Maybe they're a
yeah.
scientist or an engineer or a paramedic or something else, and they're bringing, as you say, the energy and the confidence, and it's really refreshing, I think, given the fact that for so many years it was like, if you said you were a travel agent, it was like saying you were a horse and buggy driver.
Yeah, I
It's
know.
like
It was crazy.
they still have those.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And oftentimes they're business people who are now new to industry, right? People who have a business background are bringing a business approach to what they're doing. So it's very, very different than, oh, I love to travel, so I'd like to sell travel, right? I mean, I'm exaggerating, but that was a bit the way it was 25 years ago. So yeah, it's changed dramatically, and it'll continue to change because you see large corporations, multinationals buying consortia, investing in consortia. And what does that tell you? They see a future. So, they're investing in the travel industry, huge growth, and more people are going to need advisors. Unfortunately, travel, the wind blows in one direction and it affects all of us. So we're going through a tough time, but we will come back strong.
Right. And I think that the world situation is such that people will become to rely more and more and more on travel advisors.
I want to close out, Martha, though, by saying that this series that I've been doing, interviewing some of the leaders, female leaders in the industry, they're amazing women. I think some of the interviews are absolutely outstanding, what they had to say and share and mentor a younger generation. But I also find myself a bit disappointed because not in them, certainly not in them at all, but in the structure of the travel industry. 25 years ago, the refrain was men at the top, women supporting them. And yes, we have women here and there in leadership roles at airlines and tour operators, but no, and even in consortia, of course, but nowhere near enough. I still feel that there is a huge gap between women and male leaders in the industry. And of course, that's everywhere, but I think the history of travel was such that, women were in support roles. And I think it's harder to break that structure in travel. And I don't see it breaking as fast as I would like it to. I still feel that when you want to talk, when I certainly want to reach out to presidents and CEOs because something is going on in the industry, my list is men. They are the ones in those roles. And I want to see women in those roles.
I completely agree with what you're saying, and I endorse what you're saying. We could talk about this till the cows come home. But I thought your chat with Jane Clementino in this series was very interesting because she addressed a number of those issues when she would be the only woman in the boardroom
Yeah,
apart from the lady who brought the coffee. I
it's
thought
great.
that was, oh my Lord, doesn't that say something? And now, there's going to be more than one Jane sitting around the table, and that's huge progress. But I think with publications like Open Jaw to inform and educate and entertain, that women will get more and more committed to the professionalism of the industry and feel the rewards of being in the senior level.
Thanks for that, Martha, and thank you for this opportunity to talk about myself. That's been
Okay.
unusual.
This was great fun. As always, thanks, Nina.
Thank you, Martha.